I'm originally from Ohio. I grew up in a little town called Wheelersburg down in Portsmouth area. I've been in Tampa, Florida now for about the past 12 years. In fact, right now I've been keeping an eye on that hurricane that's coming in. It's on the, I think it's going to hit the opposite coast, but it still pays to pay attention. But I've been down here about 12 years. I've been a Buckeye fan. My first memories of when I was 4 and 5 are of watching OSU games on TV with my dad. Woody was probably still the coach about 1975 around that time. And I remember my dad screaming at the TV. And I kind of got it from him. And I don't miss OSU games. I will put work aside. I will blow off weddings. I'll make excuses that I'm sick so I can watch the games. One of the reasons is I'm very superstitious. So if I feel like if I miss a game, they're going to play badly. And the last time that I missed a game or half a game was the Clemson game a few years ago. I missed half of it, and you see what happened. So, it feeds into my superstitions. But yeah, I yell at the TV. I second guess play calling, but I love it. I love it because I'm a Buckeye. I was born and raised in Ohio. My hometown is maybe 5,000 people. And one of my best childhood memories are watching games with my dad, growing up and long time ago. And so I don't miss them playing. I don't miss games at all.
Dave, I know your background, but I also know something else. So, David, what do you?
Well, I was introduced to the Buckeyes as an early child. I remember asking my mother. I like every other kid my age, just loved Archie Griffin, and Archie Griffin was a senior when I was 5 years old. And I remember asking my mom if I could get a afro just like Archie Griffin. And she looked at me in that flaming coppery hair and said, yes, you can. Just start growing it now. It took me probably 10 years before I realized that was never going to happen. But anyway, I was born and raised in Columbus. And, if it was just in the DNA of the local area. I mean, there was no other option. And I've just loved Ohio State since I was a kid. I hang out with James. We watch games in different cities together. We text each other while it's going on. James has a tendency to be a little bit more the sky is falling than me, but I try to be a little voice of reason, and we have a lot of fun riding back and forth. It's a lot of fun. I really have difficulties watching games in public places. I have some friends around here in the Dayton area where I live now that will try to have a conversation with me right in the middle of a play, and I will say, hold up, wait till after the story, and I'll answer your question. But don't. So essentially, I watch the games by myself if I can, just because people don't have the same passion, and that's how I am.
Well, it's funny that for those of you who don't know, Dave and I used to work together a long time ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was that long ago. And where we worked, they had a tendency to ask you to come in and work on a Saturday morning. And I can't recall Dave ever coming in on a Saturday morning on a football Saturday morning. Now, if I got there, I got in and out before the game started, but I can't recall you ever even being there on a Saturday. Is that my recollection correct? Or he just refused to come in?
That is very correct, because nothing you could do on Saturday couldn't be done on Sunday. So I went in on Sundays just because I didn't believe in that Saturday stuff.
Yeah. So here's where we are now. We have a game coming up on Saturday against the opponent that I'm going to say is Florida Directional Somebody Institute of something. Okay. So when we play
Lane Kiffin.
Fighting Lane Kiffin.
Fighting Lane Kiffin. When we play these games, when there is, let's just say, the outcome shouldn't be in doubt, how do you keep yourself going? Do you have to keep yourself going? James, what do you think?
One thing I look for in those types of games are development of the younger kids. I want to see, we got this new wide receiver guy, I believe it's Wilson. out of Texas. He's originally from Ohio, Garrett Wilson. I'm really interested in seeing how he does, especially over the spring game after he had a couple of really nice catches. And I'm interested in seeing how the freshman defensive end does. I believe Zach Harrison, that's his name. I'm interested in seeing him because, we just graduated. We just lost Bosa. And we lose Chase Young after this year. So we need, someone to step in after Young leaves. But yeah, I honestly, I enjoy blowouts just as much as I do the close games. It's good to see the guys get some confidence. I remember after 2014, during 2014, when they were coming off the Virginia Tech loss, they went. The next game was Kent State, and of course they obliterated Kent State. But that game was really crucial for them because it gave them their confidence back. It gave them their mojo back. And I think these type of games are good to give the young team, even though they've got some veterans back, to give the team a chance to gain some confidence. Because week 2, they got, Luke Fickell and the Bearcats, and I can guarantee you they're going to be ready for an upset for that one. So they got to be ready. So I look forward to watching the young kids do well. I'm looking forward to see what this Justin Fields kid can do. I'm looking forward to see J.K. Dobbins. I'm looking forward to seeing if the defense is rebuilt. That's probably the number one thing for me. But I make it through these blowouts pretty well. I mean, if it's crazy, like they scored 77 points last year against Oregon State, by mid-third quarter, I'm like, I'm starting to look at, maybe for other games, maybe. But I don't really miss too much.
Okay, Dave, now you kind of went to the point of, during the play, don't talk to me. When it is 77-0, is it time for conversation? Or are you still just like James said, I'm still watching because I'm not watching just the score. I'm watching how they play.
You know what? I'm a little bit weird. I think the DVR is the most wonderful invention in this millennia so far. So what I usually do is I will watch a game and record it, and I will go and replay it as we're going. So most of the time it's 77-0, but on my television it's still like 35-0. So I will actually go in and watch individual offensive linemen. I will watch routes. It's difficult on TV because you often don't see where the routes are being run. They usually cut off around, just beyond linebacker level. So I'll sit there and I have no problems watching a blowout. I'd like to see how young players develop. And this year I will be watching the offensive line. I mean, they went from having the largest offensive line that they've ever had, almost Wisconsin offensive line size, to and they could not run the ball. Well, this year they've got 3 true guards, and I'm beginning to think that, or I'm a little optimistic that they'll be able to run the ball a little more. And with J.K. Dobbins, you just got me off on a tangent. I'll just keep going. So.
Tangents are good. Now, see, and we all grew up with remember when the game was replayed on WSU that night. So it's kind of what you're talking about, Dave. It's that, you could go enjoy the game, go to the game day, go to Heinegate, do all that good fun stuff, and then you could watch it the next night, or for those who are capable, wake up the next morning and watch it. But that's kind of the same concept of what you're talking about, is that there's the game experience, and then there's the analysis. Because as I've talked to people, one of the things that I've noticed about Ohio State fans in general is that they're not just good time Charlies just having fun. Now, I have come across some that they know the words of the fight song, have no idea what the score of the game is. I get that. But that kind of thing. So that's what I'm seeing, is that a lot of people will tune in for the blowout and watch the whole thing. Now, you run across those people at your various sports bars and places like that, and like, turn on the Michigan game or turn on the Notre Dame. No. This one's not over.
No, that ain't happening.
Wait until the final, and then after the press conference, then you can turn it on to the next game. Okay, now we were talking about that. Who do we have to replace? Not have to replace, but who is in line to replace people that have moved on? Dave, you start.
Well, we'll have to go back to Justin Fields. Justin Fields is probably the most athletic person we've had on the field since Braxton Miller, but with a stronger arm. Now, has he proven anything? No. But if he gets hurt, that's where we're in big trouble. I don't see maybe they have Chuganov as a game manager. I think that is the key right there. If he can move the ball and score and not get hurt, I think Ohio State, the sky's the limit. But I think they can win. But they can't win on just pure talent. Luckily, I think the defense has nowhere to go but up. That was I don't know how James used to call it just a pure shit show last year. It was pretty kind of interesting. But that's very, very accurate. I don't know how you can have all-world defensive linemen, and I have no idea what was going on with the defensive backs. They were just quite awful. But I think there's a giant upgrade this year when it comes to a defensive back coach, and I think they seem to be buying into of what the coaches are saying. But, offensively, I think you have to worry about the guards. I'm not quite sure about the wide receivers yet. I think Austin Mack is a really good wide receiver, but he was injured. I don't know how he came back from that. Garrett Wilson is going to be right behind, which was it? Probably Ben Victor. Yeah. So Ben Victor, he's had some good catches, but he's tall and lanky. He doesn't really run fast. He strides. I wouldn't, but I'm not really sold on him as a route runner yet. So I'm thinking that Garrett Wilson might do fairly well. As far as the other one, was Chris Olave, I think he's going to be good. He's still a little young, but that man can just flat out run routes. He catches anything in the zip code. Is there any other positions you'd like to talk about? I'm just going all over the place.
So just kind of just jump around. The one thing I want to mention about the quarterbacks, though, all the quarterbacks that should be on the roster are not. And that's something that the landscape of football right now, of college football, has completely changed. You should still have Joe Burrow. You should still have Tate Martell. You should still have Dwayne Haskins. They should all be on the roster. Now, Haskins, I understand because he had a great year, time to move on. Okay. But all those three, the way it used to be played, all three of those quarterbacks should still be on the roster. And you'd be able to pick and choose between them. Of course, you wouldn't have Justin Fields, probably, but you would be able to pick and choose between, okay, next man up. Well, next man up now goes someplace else. Right or wrong, good or bad, that's just the way things are right now. But in the old days, it would have been like, okay, we've lost this guy to injury, this guy graduated, we have two more guys in their place. I go to the Justin Zwick, Troy Smith era. Like, it was supposed to be Justin Zwick, and Troy Smith beat him out. Well, if anything happened to Troy Smith, Justin Zwick was still there, instead of transferring to go to Poughkeepsie State or whatever. So that's the thing that I see that's different now. James, what do you think defensively we've got to look at?
Oh, defensively, I mean, it just seemed like they couldn't stop anybody. And they gave up so many of those big plays last year. I thought it was kind of a masterstroke to hire Greg Madison. He was an architect of some of those UF defenses when Urban was coaching down there. Jeff Hafley got a vote of endorsement from Richard Sherman himself. So that was enough for me. And I'm curious to see how they can mix and match what they already have. Last year's defense kind of reminded me a lot of the 2013 defense that featured guys like Ryan Shazier and Noah Spence and Joey Bosa, and they just couldn't stop anyone either. They bring in Chris Ash in the offseason, and they win a national championship with it. So I kind of have that same kind of hope, keeping my fingers crossed that bringing in Hafley and bringing in Madison and new linebackers coach Al Washington, I'm having some hope that maybe they can get right the ship, because they have, Chase Young, who's going to be a top 5, maybe top 10 pick. They have 3 defensive backs that are going to get drafted, and they got a couple other defensive linemen that are going to get picked up. They've got probably 7 or 8 draft picks on defense this year. Yet they were, I believe, in 117th in yard. Those plays given up 30 plays or more or something. It was a ridiculous number. And it was against teams that, were losing 5, 6, 7 games too. That's what was the worst part about it. So I have hope that at least that stops. They don't need to be a top 5 defensive unit. If they can come in top 25, top 30, that's enough. That's enough to get them in the CFP. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. And they're going to get a nice test from Lane Kiffin's offense. I guarantee you they're going to come out throwing and gunning. And, it'll be a good first test for the new defense, I think.
Well, I've got a couple questions for both of you. Now, this is kind of where we've gone in the last 4 or 5 years. How many defensive backs have been drafted from the last 4 or 5 years from Ohio State? Like 103? I mean, in the first round?
Like that. If you count, you had Bree alone after 2016. So.
But what I think is from being out here, and I don't get to see every game, unfortunately, whenever I see a game, I don't see great DB play. I don't see bad DB play, but I don't see top 4 DB play. So my question is it essentially there's the talent there. I see it, but I always see. I see guys open. I see guys trailing receivers, and I'm not sure that we have that shutdown player or that shutdown scheme. Am I just a little off there, or is it just my perception different because I don't see every game?
No, I believe the Okuda kid's going to be a top 20 pick. If you remember the Rose Bowl, he seemed to bat away everything thrown his way in that game. I think he has taken that leap. I believe other junior Sean Wade has kind of moved up in that conversation. I believe from what I understand or what I've been reading about the new defense is it seems that Hafley may be going to a little bit more of a zone to allow the defensive players to play instead of putting them in too many one-on-one situations. We saw that in the spring game where I believe Johnson had 2 interceptions, and I don't think he had 2 interceptions in his career going into that. And you allow guys to play free, allow guys to get to the ball quicker, so they don't have to play as many one-on-ones in case we do have deficiencies like you talk about. They might be able to hide them up a little bit. But I believe Okuda and Wade are going to be really good this year. In fact, I believe they're going to be draft picks, and they're going after this year. We have the senior Damon Arnett back. It'll be interesting to see how much he's improved or not. But you're right. Last year, every time the opposition put the ball in the air, I crossed my eyes. I'm like, it's going to be a pass interference or a catch, and it drove me nuts.
and to go along with what James was saying,
leading into that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say.
Now, kind of picking.
I'll mute myself.
Okay, well, looking at that kind of idea, scheme, whatever, we're looking at a new coaching staff, Dave, or at least a new coach. I don't know if the staff has changed that much, but a new coach is obviously you're going from one of the best coaches in the history of college football to someone who's a little well behind the ears. What difference is that going to make this year? Is it going to make a huge difference, Dave? What do you think?
Well, honestly, I was talking to James briefly about this last year, and he seemed to think that Urban was a little bit hell bent on his style of offense, and it needed a little updating, and that's where I think Ryan Day comes in. I think he spent enough time with Oregon and what he was doing and with the whole trips and Saints. And the mesh schemes they have with offensive, with the way they run their routes, and a little bit with zone blocking. And I think they'll be okay offensively. I think they'll be a little bit more. I think they'll probably be a little bit more balanced. I think they'll probably score a ton of points, and I don't really think And I think with Kevin Wilson and still calling plays, there's going to be a little bit of familiarity. It's not going to be – I don't think it's going to be too much different offensively, probably with having only one quarterback, they probably won't just run the ball. He'll scramble. He'll get his yards when things break down. But I really hope they don't run the read option like he was J.T. Barrett, because there is no backup quarterback.
Right.
If he goes down, oh my, I don't want to be around James.
Right.
But I think they're fine offensively. I think I honestly think that this year's offensive line will be slightly an upgrade, just because I think they've got true guards with Wyatt and
the Rutgers transfer.
Yeah, Johnny Johnson. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I think they've got really good guards, and I think they'll be quicker on the interior lines. So they'll probably be able to get onto the linebackers a little faster, which will open it up for J.K. Dobbins, which is he'll make you miss, and he's going to get 10 yards, and he's really solid. And I think offensively they'll be fine. I worry a bit more about the wide receivers. They're seniors, but they're solid. We'll see if they can actually get the ball to them. I mean, that's pretty much what it boils down to. I don't think the coaches are really going to matter. They've got some really fine coaches. I think they've got some coaches that understand the game, are inventive, and I think they're just solid offensive coaches.
Well, the thing that I was most worried about during the J.T. Barrett time was that when we had to throw, we hadn't thrown the ball in 3 weeks, so we couldn't complete a pass, an important pass. Now, we went the other way, I think, with Haskins, like, this guy's all over the place. Now we can't run the ball. Or we're losing sight of the fact that we have actually three solid running backs who we haven't given the ball to in a quarter and a half or longer than that. So if we can find that balance, I think we're in good shape. And I think that, as you said, maybe part of that was because we didn't have the offensive line that could open up a hole. I don't know, but it seemed to me that when we made a commitment to running the ball, we were able to run the ball. But then we didn't make a commitment to running the ball.
Let's not forget, it's not that Haskins couldn't run, because he showed that in the last 4 games, but he refused. He flat out refused to run.
Sure.
And my neighbor's mowing their yard, so I'll mute myself again.
But also understanding that wasn't his bread and butter. And instead, the little scheme change that we're going to get is that maybe we don't have that read option much, and maybe play quarterback, and our running backs are more straight ahead, fullback kind of stuff, a little bit of stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to change, but I think that when Ryan Day took over last year, there was that commitment to this is how we're going to do this, as opposed to the quarterback running the ball 40 times a game. James, I'm curious to see how we're going to progress through the season. What are those games that you look at and you go, uh-oh, are we going to be ready for that game?
I'm along with what a lot of people have said, that end of September game at Nebraska could be problematic, just because of how close they played us last year. They got the Martinez, that quarterback back, and Scott Frost has shown that he can take a team and make them really good in just a short period of time. I think that that game is going to be a problem, and I was looking at the schedule, and this is the first time in my memory that we played Penn State the week before Michigan. Right. I look at that and I'm like, dude, that could be a problem. And if we get caught in a close game against Penn State, does that affect the Michigan game, or vice versa? Do we get caught looking past them? So it's. But I think that UC game is going to be interesting week 2, and I think the Nebraska game is going to be interesting. Of course, they got to play Wisconsin at home, and they got Sparty at home this year, so. That will be, and Sparty is supposed to have maybe the top defense in the whole Big Ten this year. So it'll be interesting to see how Coach Day deals with that. And I'm interested to see how he does in the close games. He was the coach during TCU last year, and I thought he handled himself well, with the defense playing as it did, and him losing Bosa early in the third quarter, and he was still able to keep the team together and still was able to win comfortably against them. when Coach Day finds himself in a close game, how's he going to do? And I'm going to be, especially a Big Ten game, I'm going to be interested to see how that goes.
Well, I think the point of the Penn State game, James Franklin team is going to be a physical team. So how do you play that physical game and then turn around and play Michigan the next week? That's going to, I think, up until then, you're looking at we've got a chance to recover, blah, 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 blah. But at that point, it's like now we've got to see who our studs are, and our studs got to perform 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Dave's your neighbor going grass?
What did you say? I'm sorry?
Dave looks like he's like, okay, what's going on around me here?
He said his neighbor's mowing the lawn.
Now,
yeah, neighbor's mowing the lawn, and if I go inside, the cats will bug me. So I'm just going to mute myself and watch James.
Okay. The key to this whole thing is informal. So, if I took away the green screen back here, you don't even want to know what's on my wall back there. So we just keep it as informal as possible. So that's now
I like it.
the one thing I want to see now. Let's get back into the fandom again. Now, what is the best setup for watching the game? Okay, I don't mind the sports bar. I don't mind the game. The last game I was at, we tailgated. It's been 8 years, I think, 6 years, something like that. We did the tailgate thing. We were in the state. That kind of bugged me because they weren't watching the game. When you get to, is it better to go out to watch the game? Is it better to be at home? Do you watch the game with other people? What's the best way to do this, Dave? For you?
Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe it's a little bit different for me. Like I said, the last game I was at was the Penn State game of 2013. It was October. It was cold. And, man, might have even been November it was that cold. But I'll be honest with you, at my age, I seem to be getting a little bit more round. And once OSU, when they redid the stadium, they took the seats from 22-inch seats down to 18-inch seats, which would be okay unless everyone in the entire stadium has arms or shoulders, which they typically do. So you have half of you leaning forward, half of you leaning backwards, just to be able to fit in the seats. And, at 6'4", 320 pounds, that's not very comfortable for me. So I personally don't like going to the games, even though I like seeing the games, because you can actually see what the defensive backs are doing. You can see if they're playing press coverage. You can see if they're playing zone. You can actually see everything as it happens. But personally, I watch it on television. I watch it by myself. If I go to a bar, people are not paying attention or they're screaming or I don't know. I remember one time I was at a bar and we gave up a touchdown. We still won the game by 30 points, but the guy next to me fired off, "We should fire Urban Meyer right now. That's bullshit." I went, "Really? Have you not? Do you not know who you hired? I mean, the guy wins a lot."
Fire Fickle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hire Fickle.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot too, right? And that is the problem with that, and that's the fanaticism gets a little like, okay, do you know what you're watching? That's fans for every genre, not just Ohio State fans. But sometimes when you're into it, it's like, just watch the game. Just watch the game. Yeah. James, what do you think? Is it the man cave? Is it? See,
it's man cave. The only person I'll watch a game with is Dave. He and I watched the 2014 Wisconsin game together. And I was even yelling at the TV at that, the 59-0. I've gone back and rewatched that over and over again. I'm like, it was just a complete domination. I should have been happy, and I was yelling at the TV anyway. But I watched the opener 2 years ago. I believe it was Bowling Green. It was 2016 at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and there were a bunch of U.S. fans there, and I was there watching the game, and anytime OSU stood up, that they would start talking trash and stuff like that. And it wasn't enjoyable for me because I wanted to punch them in the throat. So, so I stopped going to sports bars for the most part. I watch the games at home. If I have to go to a sports bar, I try to find like a quiet area and get away from everybody, but not a lot of places have as many TVs as a Buffalo Wild Wings, though. So, you got to kind of watch it. But, yeah, man cave, I always make a dish. I usually order a bunch of chicken wings, or I make, like, my chili or something like that for myself. And every now and then I will invite some friends over here, but most times I just watch the game by myself. I text Dave.
What I'm trying to put together, and I'm trying to do it for a lot of different teams, whatever, it's kind of that two guys on a couch kind of thing. While the game's going on, we'll kind of have this kind of setup where we have our quote-unquote experts, probably me and Charles, if you want to call that experts, Dave, I don't know. But two guys just sitting there commenting on the game as the game's going on. So it's almost like we're on the couch with you. We're not going to take away from the broadcast, nothing like that. And we're looking at doing a thing where we can get stats on the screen so we can carry more stats than the broadcast is carrying. So, if it's what are the tendencies at 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 4 or whatever. So we have that stuff going on. But it's basically, hey, if you are like us and you like talking to guys that like watching the games, but you don't want to go out with all the other people for the other teams and the people that are like you said, okay, the play's going on, quit yelling about your beer that you didn't get. It'll get here next round, that kind of thing. We're trying to set up something like that, which I think would be pretty cool. But the idea being, you want to see the game. And I don't quite grab people that call themselves fans. I'm not disparaging them at all, but those are the kind of people we're trying to get involved. If you're watching the game, cool. If you're not watching the game, that's cool too. But you don't watch the game with me, that kind of thing. So, guys, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to revisit this in another week or so. I'm looking at, finding out what we can find out from this team this Saturday. I'm happy that it's going to be on here. I don't have to go looking for it myself. It'll be on my TV, which is rare. Sometimes I have that, that 3:30 game I've got to go scramble to find someplace because it's 12:30 here. But it's going to be I think it's a 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock tip kickoff here, which is for me. I can just kind of roll over and go, hey, football's on. So we'll kind of take some notes and we'll kind of look back on this next week and go from there. How's that sound?
It sounds
good to me.
I look forward to it.